the key to what we teach around pillars is to eliminate a lot of people, not so much take everyone we can get and close everything we can get. It's more about who qualifies and who fits. And that's more about just getting to know someone.
Welcome to Sales Assassins, the podcast that unveils the lost art of word-of-mouth marketing for professionals just like you. We cover everything from building relationships and nurturing connections to overcoming the challenges of modern marketing. You'll learn how to stand out in a crowded market, charge confidently for your services, and create an army of people recommending you without hesitation. Now, let's dive in and make you deadly effective at sales. Welcome to Sales Assassins. Joe, how's it going?
It's going well, man. Great to see you.
Oh, yeah, this is fun. Episode 3, we're on. We're rocking and rolling.
3 already?
Exactly. Pretty soon it'll be 300, 3,000. Well,
sky's
the
limit.
limit. That's right. So it was funny. I was watching some content, this weekend and listening to a guy named Dan Martell, kind of just new on my radar, super sharp. He had this quote that's essentially everything you want to accomplish is on the other side of your reach and your reputation. And I thought that was so succinct in and of itself and so true. But also what really hit me immediately was the alignment that has with your approach with folks in Assassins, with everything you do, like your business itself, leaning into word of mouth as your primary marketing strategy. And that only works, certainly, if you have a good reputation. And I think there's so many examples that you have of that, how that can work well and not so well when you don't pay attention to that. And I think this is an interesting concept to once again be purposeful with something, your reputation, when some people think, oh, well, that's out of my control. I can't do that.
Right.
Well, there's a lot in your control when it comes to that. Do you feel that alignment in terms of how you help people in Assassins, work on that reputation and how people think of them?
Yeah, I do. And, I've been in some form of networking for, 100 years, 25 years, whatever it seems. And I think there's a couple aspects you hit on there that we really want to hone in on. The first one is what not to do. All of us have been involved in an organization, a group, a social club, a chair. It doesn't matter what it is, but I promise you, everyone has been involved somewhere where they know that person that when they come around, everyone does this. They know. So from a reputation standpoint, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be the person that gets ostracized or is so CLZ or is so, intent on getting business done in these different opportunities that people just don't want to be around you. So let's just get that one out of the way. Like I always say, just keep social. There's ways to pivot and we'll get into those at some point, but in the meantime, just keep social. And then there's the other end of that spectrum where, and I had this with a client I was talking to yesterday, where they actually have a lot of reach, but they don't see themselves having that reach and they don't capitalize on that opportunity as well. And we're working on that, and it saw a pretty big transformation. But, I call it big dog syndrome where, like when I was, and I don't know if this is helpful for you to envision, but when I was a kid, I had 2 dogs, Flatty, who was a full-grown collie, and then I got a puppy named Rudy, and he was a lab. Well, Rudy grew to be 120 pounds, and his paw was the size of my hand. But he never saw himself as bigger than Latin. So he, out of his purview and out of his vision, he would see himself as the small dog. And with this particular, and so like with this particular client, they actually went to an event over the weekend, and he had someone with him who pointed out to him, man, everybody's coming up and talking to you. Everyone wants to be in your presence. Everyone wants a piece of you, essentially. And he had never really experienced that, even though I actually texted him, don't forget you're a big dog. But he had to have someone like witness it to see that. So it's like that, even though he had some reach there, he wasn't as confident, making those relationships stronger, pivoting to business if it presented himself. Some of the things that we work on when you're going to something, that has a social component to it. And it was because he saw himself still as the small dog, and he's not. He's crushing it.
there's an aspect of that, that shows good character, in a sense that like they're not, we've seen the people who aren't a big dog and they're trying everything they can to appear that way, right? But at some point, it's really important that you embrace that fact that, oh, I belong in the room. I belong with these folks. I can help these folks. So let me show up that way. Because I think we've all experienced that too. There's just an interesting dynamic that happens with one person alpha over the other. And, not even purposefully, but it's just in the dynamic, and it's interesting. And it takes a really purposeful, I gotta get over that.
Well, I call it, and I didn't coin this, but I've used it for 20 years, strategic intent. The more strategic I am about going somewhere and who's going to be there and how it's going to play out and who I can interact with, the more confidence I have versus it all being random and reactive. So just having somewhat of a game plan on how I'm going to go about this. And you got to be careful. Like, again, you don't want this. So like, check your motive. Your motive is going to get checked for you, right? Like, people want to know, why are you asking? What are you, like, what's behind this? So you have to work on that. But it's really about having a strategy to expand your reach without being a pushy salesperson. And then it's a delicate balance. You may step on your toe once in a while or someone else's toes, but it's the more strategic you can be around an event you're attending, the less likely that is to happen. We used to call it bumping shoulders. We would strategically bump into some people we just wanted to talk to. Like, I took it as I'm getting to know them as much as they're getting to know me. The key to what we teach around pillars is to eliminate a lot of people, not so much take everyone we can get and close everything we can get. It's more about who qualifies and who fits. And that's more about just getting to know someone. Like, and you understand that, like, people, even higher up in what you would consider in hierarchy status, whatever it is, they're all the same. Everybody gets nervous. Everyone has fears. Everyone so I try to help our people understand that, like, just because someone has accomplished something or done something, it doesn't mean that they don't have the same concerns. We actually did a funny little thing. I did an in-person out in Utah, and I read someone's palm, because you can read anyone's palm. You can say, you've experienced a lot of pain. There's something you deeply want. There's something missing. And that's true of all of us. There's something you're afraid of. So, like, it's true. Hey, you read my palm. You read my mind, because I'd want, when we're working with someone around what they're doing and getting out socially, it's really like, have a strategy around it and avoid leading with business. And it's just easy to say, keep social. That's the way to start to expand that reach. And then you can start making judgments on, do I attend this? Do I go to this? Like, I had an example. I was invited to something this Saturday, and, if I was 27 years old and wanted to be out all night on Labor Day weekend, it might've been something I was doing. It gave me a feeling of like, that's not where I wanted my springboard to be in this arena. So I declined politely and did something different, and still maintained the person who invited me and everything. But it's just, you're going to have, if you do want to get what Dan Martell's saying, what's on the other side of that, you have to figure out a way to get to the other side. And if you're not strategic, it'd be like trying to find something without a map. You have to really hone in on that.
Yeah. And I think what's really kind of a fun perspective, especially for the folks we're talking to, I would say most business owners, honestly, but certainly these individuals who need to sell themselves to, get business for themselves. This becomes your job to be social, right? To go and in your area, and I guess for some people that could be horrible. To me, that sounds like, oh, wow, that's a blast to go and, connect for a living. And when you take that approach of, right, when I go run errands all the way down to what am I going to do over Labor Day, and you make business sort of decisions in that. And still, like you talk about, it's still the dance. Like, I'm there to be social first and foremost. I'm there to get the eggs and milk first and foremost, but having that strategy and that mindset that everything's an opportunity because of the profession I'm in, I can help so many people. Let's find out if there's somebody I can help today.
Well, and we had this Assassin's call yesterday. So one of the things that we're, focusing on is every connection is an opportunity. Every person you're connected to or every connection is an opportunity. It's just, can you be curious enough, connect enough, figure out if there's a fit and help someone, or if they have someone you can help. So if your attitude is everything that I'm connected to is somewhat of an opportunity, it stops becoming about making so many connections. It's more about how can I filter out and, do good through the connection. And by the way, everyone has to win on these things. Like, people, Martell also has a thing that he talks about where some people do business and try to make all the money themselves. So like, it should be one of those things where everybody benefits, everybody prospers. That's who people want to be around. They don't want to be around a penny pincher, deal hackler. They want, like, abundance comes from abundance. Like, if I think abundantly, as much as I can, more opportunities come to me. But in that regard, it's really, how can I make this just like the second nature? We've talked about pillars in a couple of these episodes. And if you think about, well, what's kind of the end game? Like, what does this look like? What is it? Like, I'm ascending, we're actually breaking down and putting levels to it because we've got an idea from doing it for so many years and how many people we've helped, like kind of where the stair steps go. But at the end of it all, I am doing the things I enjoy with the people I like, and we're all making a lot of money together. And I'm fulfilled and happy and giving back and all the good things around it. And that's where it kind of culminates is, okay, how do I get there strategically? And who do I say yes to more than who says yes to me? Because as you ascend, you'll find you're going to say no to things because of what we're talking about, because we're trying to figure out where to go. And if you say yes to everything, then it kind of loses its value and you're overwhelmed. But the experience itself is, I find the things that I like to do and the other people that like to do those things, we do them together and we all make money together. I've been around the blocks a little bit. I'm 48 years young, and I have a rule. If we're not going to make money together, I'm not going to spend time with you. And it's not because I'm greedy. It's because I have 5 kids and run a couple businesses. And it's like, if we're not going to prosper together, if we don't have an opportunity, I'm not going to be your party animal. And not that anyone's really asking me to do that. But if you start thinking that way, like, how I want to spend my time with people that want to excel and prosper together. That's why we have an inner circle mastermind. That's people that are trying to do the same thing in different areas of the country and different businesses, but it's the same premise. Like, I don't give my time to people that don't help me excel, and I don't help them. It's a two-way street. So but that's how it's built in the beginning, especially if you have to go out into your community in different organizations, be that guy or gal.
Oh yeah. Cause that gets to that reputation part. And it's also, again, being purposeful with that, sitting down and making a decision like that. Like, this is who I am. This is where I want to spend my time. And again, it's very purposeful, but it's for your greater good. You, number one. And again, it's not so I can, Scrooge McDuck dive into my pile of cash. It's because I can, if you want to do that, awesome. But, there's also there's so much time on the planet to have with business, with work, with your family. Like, what can you do in each minute of the day that has a bigger, better impact? And it's just being purposeful with that and deciding what that is for you and moving forward. I think that's fantastic.
Well, and you can think of it as, I call it levels of leverage. So what leverage do I have with my output, with my time? So I want different levels. And as, I think and I can't speak for Dan Martell, obviously. What he's also saying is, I have way more leverage in my output into those higher, wealth and status and different things. I get way more. It's the same output. If I go to the cake party or I go to this one, like, which one gives me the most leverage? It's not this one. So I want to, on the other side of what I decide to do, I want the most leverage with what I'm trying to accomplish, because time's the scarcest resource we all have. And in the beginning, we get upside down on time because we're probably doing everything. A lot of our assassins are in that level 1, level 2, where they're out doing their pillars and they're learning it and they're getting the muscle memory and it's becoming conscious competence, but they're also doing everything else. So it's like, well, I still have to take it home, cook it and clean it and all those things. So It's how do I leverage my time? And the faster you can ascend, the more leverage you get. But remember, if you are as my kids would call it, a try-hard, you'll get ostracized. So it's like, don't be loud, obnoxious, and me. There's a way to go about this where this is not novel. It's like, be a giver, give your time, give your sweat equity. Try to be someone that is known as someone that will give their time in the beginning, especially, and then their money. But if I can give more, I will receive more. I think that's, written in some really important book. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I think people go. But I think people go into these expecting immediate gratification through, the relationship building, and it doesn't work that way. And if you try to force it, you'll revert and go backwards. I've seen that as well.
Right. And that goes in line. We kind of wrap on this point of that reputation part of it, because as, good friend of mine, Coach Suzanne Taylor King talks about, is that, like, who's talking about you and how in rooms you're not in. And that's, you talk about reach when you've worked on these pillars and you've put this together and you've built this reputation. I mean, that's the ultimate. It's not just, oh, you should meet so-and-so, this and that. It's, what are they saying in those rooms you're not in? I think that's huge.
Very. And we call that singing your song. Someone else is singing your song. They're humming your song along, or they're singing it out loud, and someone else hears that, like, what is that? And then I just call that singing you want other people singing your song. You want an army of people singing that song everywhere they go. And in social networking or however you want to describe it, one of the fastest ways is being known as someone that does things and gets things done and is enjoyable to be around and not pushy. So, like, if you had to give yourself an identity in that, I'm going to be there, I'm going to enjoy this, I'm going to give back, and I will not talk business. I keep things social, keep social. I'm not going to talk business unless it's talk to me. Then I have permission to put the business cap on and start talking. And probably not there. We had this discussion yesterday. We had a young man in our Assassins that was something over the weekend, and he went into a sales presentation at the event and then was like baffled by like what happened. And it's like, dude, what you do is say, I can help you with that. Let's talk on Tuesday at coffee. This isn't the place. Show some EQ, like awareness. Hey, this is probably not the place for me to break down how we help you. But I can help you. It's just not here.
That's both long-term thinking. It's EQ, like you talk about, and it's also a great positioning. I mean, that other person immediately puts you in a different category than when you roll right into, even if it's at a subconscious level, even if they've said like, oh, how do you help people? And you come back with, oh, yeah, there's so much we could do. This isn't the play. Let's keep having a good time. Let's talk on Tuesday.
Well, it shows your level of awareness around confidentiality, because people get excited and want to talk about stuff and they forget, like they get tunneled into what they're saying. So it's like, zoom them out for a second. Hey, this isn't the play. Like, I'm protecting you. You're about to talk about some things that maybe you don't want everyone around here knowing. I'm the consummate professional. Let's talk here. Let's enjoy this. But yes, I can help you. That does subconsciously send them that you'll protect them. Because you're not going to allow them to go down a road in public. And by the way, you can get quagmired there as well. And you don't want that. So from your standpoint, I don't want to get into some sort of quagmire conversation about something. I don't know enough about them. So one key, by the way, when you do these things, know your calendar. Like, when I say be strategic, know next week's calendar so that if that comes up, hey, I've got lunch available on Wednesday. Let's grab that at XYZ. I'll follow up with a text and let's go back to having fun here. That way I'm not waiting 48 hours, 72 hours to follow up and try to wrestle that back, because time kills all deals. So, if I put up 2-3 days in between that, the moment may be past. So it's capitalizing without being pushy. And if you are organized and have strategy, then it's super easy to pivot and be seamless to get the next step, which is to find out if what you do is something that they really want or need and you are a fit, not to sell them your product.
Yeah. And I love this too. I want to end on this point that you brought up before we started recording, which is you're living this right now, from scratch, right? Obviously you have your years of experience and you have, the groups and the people in the business. But in terms of location, you're starting this from scratch and you're not, I think you could be in a situation of like, well, my stuff's online. I've got my thing. It's humming. It's going. But no, you're like, oh, this is what I do. I'm going to help more people. Let me get into my community. You're doing this right now because you just moved.
Correct. So, one of the things I've always been taught and teach is be curious. So like when I get introduced to someone, I don't berate them like an attorney or litigate them on, but be curious about other people and what they do and start to figure out, how could I help them? What do they need? That's just a great place to start with anyone is like, oh, tell me about that. And it's super easy. It's not like you have to pull a profile sheet out and start doing that. Like, hey, tell me about your family. Where are you from? I mean, it's the common questions, but you got to listen differently. What do they do? And then if they ask about what you do and you go into, we actually had this conversation yesterday on Assassins. If you go into the Pledge of Allegiance of whatever it is you do, like game's over.
Right.
I call it lacing. Like I would state what I do or who I help briefly and I want to create more than anything. I want to create some curiosity. Like the lunch I had yesterday, the person, and we exchanged texts a week or so ago, and he's like, I want to learn more about what you do. Because I have gotten to the point where I can say just enough about who I help to leave them hanging on about, well, is that me? Or how? And by the way, I'm a target for all salespeople because I'm here to deploy capital and build things and business. So like there's a two-way street there. Like, and so attorneys, realtors, salespeople, they're everywhere here. And I'm trying to, do what I preach. I'm trying to figure out who would be a fit, who's a good influencer. I've got 1:00 today with the person that owns this building. He's been phenomenal to me. He knows everyone. He's been here 29 years. I don't like ram down his throat what I do, but he keeps asking. He's a great dude. If you see this, Jimmy, I love you. But, I got to know him in the last month. And it's like you're building an actual relationship. And there will come a point where you can pivot. You just have to get a sense of when to make the pivot. And if they open the door, you better step through it. And that takes that's not innate in all of us. We had a young man yesterday. When I say young man, it makes me sound like I'm 80. I'm only 48. He had the door open for him and over the weekend. And he wanted to meet the need of not being comfortable. So he wanted to get back to comfort. So instead of stepping through the door, he went back to another social opportunity and he could have easily made his pivot. So that hurts reach, by the way, because someone actually did open the door with a specific, and he's like, well, let's get together and do this because it was uncomfortable. So it's not like this happens innately. You have to be able to, on a dime, pivot to that. If the opportunity presents itself, it takes reps. He did a follow-up after we talked on the call on how, hey, I was thinking about what you said. I'd really like an opportunity to talk to you about that. It was kind of like in the moment, he kind of got like, oh, well, we're going to ride razors in 2 weeks because just not in his muscle memory. So that's okay. But you want to get to the point to where at the drop of a hat, if it happens, you're there. You just don't start there.
Give me some detail in that, because that sounds counter to what we were just telling folks of, hey, don't go into presentation mode there or anything like that. How is that different that where he should have stepped through?
It's not the presentation. Don't ever do that. It's getting to the next step. That's the difference. It's not about products. It's not about solutions. It's the next step. And he was presented with the opportunity to do a business quote by that person directly. And instead of saying, great, let's do that, because there's the pivot point. It's not like, hey, okay, well, give me all your information and we're at I know I'm at this party, but hang on and do. It's not that. Think of it. I'm glad you're pointing that out. Think of it this way. It's like many steps to the end, and it's a qualifying on both parts. When you're in services, when you're consultative services, you should be qualifying as much as you're being qualified, if not more. And he was given the opportunity to go to that exact next step. And instead of doing that, he put a big step in between it. Does that make sense? Like he put
Gotcha. Delayed it unnecessarily. And again, I hope people understand this nuance too, because it's not just the steps. It's the reason behind it, the energy behind it, because it was out of fear and avoidance, not, oh, this might come off, this is better business to wait.
Well, think about it this way too. If he would have led with that recommendation, then don't do that. But it was recommended to him, let's do this. And then it was like, it's like, so it's a nuance. So when I teach what I call SAP, source, arrange, and pivot, I source names, I arrange introductions, and I pivot in the moment. That was a pivot in the moment that he did make a pivot. It just wasn't the one that I would say is the most effective. It doesn't mean it's dead. Just think about that though. Like, instead of having the coffee, lunch, in-office appointment to take that very next step, now they're going to put 2 weeks between it and a full social calendar. It doesn't mean that would have been, so in practice, that would have been my, oh, by the way, that would have been my back, like if I was going to fall back. So let's just play this out in real time. I'm talking to you and you say, yeah, I'm interested in what you're saying. I'd like to get you to give me this information, which was in this instance, an insurance quote. I'm open to that. I'd like to do that. So then when that is said in the law of pivots, the business hat has been given permission. Like you've said to me, I can throw that business hat on right now. I've not led with it. I've not brought it up. I kept it social, but you brought it up to me, which is my rule. If you bring it up to me, door's open. And he had the opportunity to say, great, next Tuesday. And that's why, I'll go back to know your freaking calendar, know your pipeline. If you know those two things, I can solve all your problems. What's your calendar? What's your pipeline? Oh, I've got Tuesday at 10 open. Let's grab coffee, soda, lunch. Well, I don't know, whatever you do in that. It's in Utah, so I don't think they do coffee, but breakfast. But instead, it was like, oh, well, you need to meet this other person on my team and let's go do this, because the level of comfort was, oh, shit, I'm getting what I asked for. Now I got to show up. Now I'm on. And it's okay. Like, he's great. And by the way, great dude, huge improvement. He got a standing ovation in Assassins like 2 weeks ago because his confidence is going like this. But he got in a situation where he didn't have a lot of muscle memory and he didn't kill it, but he just prolonged it. And time kills all deals. So what I'm saying specifically there is, if I say to you, yes, I am going to do what you're really wanting me to do next, and you sell it back to me, that creates time and that kills deals. So in that specific moment, it's getting to the next step, which was having them come in and bring them the information I need to help them.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, that absolutely
thank
does.
You for clarifying it. That's why you're here, because I don't want to confuse you.
Here's the translator.
Thank you.
And it is a little bit. I think it is. It sounds like in that situation, it is a little bit more of the muscle memory, right? Like he just hasn't done this so much. But it goes back a little bit too to the big dog situation that we're in too. Of like, hey, you know, they're asking you for this reason. They see in you that you can be a solution for them. Stand in that and be confident in that. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, I appreciate this. This has been a blast. Man, so much nuance as we get into this. You know, it sounds just like, oh yeah, word of mouth, do this thing. And it is. That's why Assassins exist. That's why.
Well, that's where we troubleshoot those little things, and it's accumulation of them of like, okay, now try this. And you know, if you ever just want to punt and go at someone, you can. Just know, once I start the direct, once I become a sales warrior and I'm coming at you, human nature would be to do what?
Run away, block. Yeah.
Wow. So that's why it's deadly to become an assassin.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. It's been fantastic. It's a good place to wrap here. And I think we've given folks some good info for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right. We'll see you next time. In a sea of endless digital noise, your ability to connect and generate authentic word of mouth is your deadliest weapon. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to break through to the next level, the principles we discuss here are your blueprint for success. It's all about being the most trusted and valued in your network. To maximize what you've learned today, visit joinsalesassassins.com to see how you can become a true sales assassin in your industry. Until next time, keep sharpening your skills, expanding your network, and remember, in the world of sales, the true assassins strike silently but effectively by doing what nobody sees coming. Building genuine connections and powerful relationships. Stay deadly, stay authentic, and we'll see you on the next episode of Sales Assassins.
This show is powered by Media Leads. To get your next great podcast produced, go to MediaLeadsCo.com.